Hey guys, it's Gus, and I've been playing the game for about a decade now. And over the years, stuff changes in the game. What people would refer to as the meta. The metas change. How the best way to play this game evolves. And a couple recent additions to the game are going to change the way we play the game as well. And the thing about the meta changes is recently they haven't really been that important. The game has been designed where you can play however you want and still beat content. You could take a group of 5 players with 5 augment companions and still beat any content easily in the game. But generally, most players, most groups, they want to maximize their group for a couple reasons. They're helping out new guildies or new ally members that aren't quite geared up or brand new to the content, and they won't be able to pull their own weight. So players have to pull more than their own weight to get that new player through the content. Or maybe that player isn't new, but they're really under geared because they haven't been playing the game long. Or maybe the groups want to do the content really fast so they can do some super fast farms. Or maybe they want to go for personal best and see how fast they can beat the content. And the way we do that has changed drastically over the years. And not so long ago, the so-called meta was all augment companions. And that changed. And then it went to strikers. And I would argue right now, well, it's been this way for quite some time. Most speed groups running content are not running striking companions. They've been running buffing companions, which are strikers as well, but their job in there is to buff the group. Because generally speaking, the group will gain more damage from the buffs than the damage from the companion itself. So any damage the companion does is just gravy added on top of those buffs. And for 5 man groups has been very apparent. And most 5 man groups that are trying to get through content fast and relatively painlessly and farm it, they've been running a Dritz, a Tutor, now we got Flapjack, Spine Devil, Black Death Scorpion. But we've actually been running 10 support companions and 10-man content for quite some time now. Really, really fast groups. And with the companion changes we're going to start seeing next week is that's going to become even more apparent. It's going to become easier. A lot of we run with the Roth. And the reason why we run the Roth is because that mitigation we get from the Roth is we don't have to use an artifact in MGR. Well, generally you don't even have to use an artifact or a Roth, but when you're trying to farm, there's always that one chance somebody's going to get crit who's outside the Guardian Fighters phalanx and they get one shot. So having that extra mitigation is always a plus when you're doing a bunch of runs. And when you don't use the artifact for the mitigation, then you have an extra artifact during the artifact call. So there's plenty of support companions. And now we're getting a couple more that are going to make it even much easier to build a group around 10 support companions, as well as improving our builds around those so we'll be even stronger. Because when it's all said and done, our companions are doing very, very little of our overall damage. Even the best striking companions. When they came out with when they buffed what was the name of that one? Very few of them in the market. The Mage Slayer. The Mage Slayer. Look at the price on this bad boy. What's this price now? Let's go to Epic. This Mage Slayer, 7.5 million. You notice there was a few players up front who wanted it, but nobody really cares anymore. Because this companion could do shit. You could do 30% more damage than it's doing now, and most optimized groups will not use it. Because this companion is doing nothing for the group except a little bit of damage. And when you're first starting out in Neverwinter, when you're growing your tune, your companion does a lot of damage compared to your damage. But as you get better and your group gets better, the damage dealers in the group start doing more damage and making the companions damage even less relevant. And that's been known for quite some time. But they're buffing some companions. Let me go show you in the auction house. And I've been telling my alliance for the last 2 days, don't do it. You're going to regret it. Let me just go get a couple of these. I probably should have held on to this. This one's a good one. The Atrian, I think, is going to be one used by basically every group. So I should have held on to it, but there's an Atrian, 1.14 mil, another one for 1.14 mil, another one for 1.1 mil, another one for 1.24 mil, another one for 822,000, and another one for a million. And then we go down here. Let's go to So I think it's on this one. I sold a bunch of flame sprites. Flame sprite's pretty good. It's not that good though. 26,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 24,000, 30,000, 29,000, 28,000, 27,000, 26,000, 25,000, 24,000, 22,000, 22,000, 22,000, 22,000, 22,000, 22,000, 28,000, 28,000, 28,000. Doing this to show you a point. 28,000, 28,000, 28,000, 28,000, 28,000, 28,000, and another one for 28,000. And then we'll go, um, yeah, let's go here. I got one more tune. So I got to respawn a beer. Thank you. But doing a vid now. Doing a vid now. I can't say no to Hammer. He's so good. Such a great teammate. So we come over here. What do we do in here? So we got so this was a Zuna for 2.7 million, another Zuna for 2.7 million, Zuna for 3 million, Zuna for 3 million, Zuna for 3 million, and a Zuna for 3 million, and another Zuna for 3.3 mil. So these companions are all skyrocketing, but the problem is when you get to end game and you start getting into organized teams, nobody will be using Azuna. You can use Azuna and beat the content, but if you want an optimized group, nobody will be doing Azuna. She does damage, but her damage that she provides to the group does not exceed the damage gained from the group if a debuff, or I'm sorry, a buffing companion was being used. By far. Some groups might only have 9 or 8 debuffs, so they'll have to go with 2 personal companions. Okay, maybe. Okay. If that was the case, I'd just run it like a second Scorpion or a second Spine Devil, just to increase the uptime and ensure that they're working. But debuff companions are where it's at, and the Atrian's looking really good. And I don't know if they're gonna nerf the Atrian or not, but the Atrian and the Harper Bard, their buffs stack. I don't know if they're gonna change that next module. I'm hoping they do. It's called, I think, Bardic Inspiration, if my memory is correct. It's been a long time since I looked. Let's look at the Harper Bard, and let's take a look. I should probably 400k. Shit, I gotta sell some of those. I got a bunch. Harper Bard. It's called Bardic Inspiration. Yeah, so it's buffing everybody by 4% offensive stats. And I know people say my power is capped. Well, uncap it then, so you can get there and get the power and get some more damage somewhere else. That's how it works by optimizing your builds. It just becomes a pain in the ass because one group may use them and one may not use them, and you're like, oh god. Uh, but this is how groups generally beat content when it first comes out, and everybody starts following suit. The thing is there's really nothing in the game that requires this level of coordination unless you're going for like personal bests or whatever. But the reason I wanted to show those companions being sold, like the Zuna and the what I've been telling my alliance for the last 2 days is, hey, the Zuna is pretty good, but you won't be using it in AoE and you won't be using it on single target. So really what it's good for is like random queues and solo. I wouldn't even say solo play, random queues. Because her AOE on the preview server right now is nowhere near Regis. I still taking Regis over her by far. But even in well organized groups, AoE, the companion's not even doing any damage at all either. So we got these companions. People are spending a lot of money on these damaged companions, like the Mage Slayer, the Zuna. You know, they have almost zero effect on the group's outcome. All it does is improve that players who's using it, their pain giver, at the expense of the group's success or the group's speed or the group's scrolls of life. We're just in that state of the game now. Not everybody has these buffing companions, and not everybody has the energy to coordinate those buffing companions. You know, I'm really lucky when I host, and I won't even be in chat. I'll just write, you know, tank Dritz, and then I'll say healer, go tutor, and then I'll say to one DPS, go flapjack, and then the next one I'll say, you got a spine, and they'll say no, and I say, do you got this, and they'll say yeah, and I said, okay, I'll go spine, you go that, and we're coordinating like a minute. But not everybody has everything. I got it, but what's nice about doing those type of runs is they usually go really fast, and the group will stay for a second run, and then you don't have to organize anything because it's already set up. And then the second edition, this is a big one, and this is one I don't think players are realizing yet. We've realized this on PlayStation for quite some time, and all we want is three more of these bad boys. My suspicion is we're gonna get to a point where nobody will be using tunnel vision, um, golden touch, giant tongue toad, or Big B's hand. Let me explain because this is kind of confusing. Um, Let me go to. Oh, it's in collections. So I can't show this because I can't equip it yet. I have it. I just can't equip it because the collections is messed up. So we got this red dragon who's a team buffing, or this mount who's a team buffing mount. And this is for 10-man content specifically. For 5-man content, the math doesn't work out yet. So for 5-man content, you know, still heavily leaning towards the tunnel visions and whatnot. But for 10-man content, having 10 of these buffing mounts will most likely equate to more damage from the group than if the 6 or however many DPS were using tunnel visions. And it's kind of a big deal. It's just a pain in the ass because it's one more thing you got to coordinate. And, you know, it's hard enough to get a 10-man group together as it is. And it's even harder if you had to put all 10 players on 10 different companions, 10 different mounts, 10 different artifacts. But it's going to happen, hopefully, where we're in a position where we can do that if we want to, or just stick with the norm and just do average runs. So this dragon's great. And here's how I'm looking at it. And my math could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Please comment below. Say you're a dumbass, Gus. And I say, okay, no problem. I was called a dumbass very often when I remember one time in particular, you know, we had just crushed the Tom record. It wasn't when we one faced it. We hadn't gotten that far yet. But we just crushed Tom. Whatever record was out there, we annihilated it. And people were like, what the F? And I was trolling on Facebook a little bit, and I told them, hey guys, you know that, because back then the Bilethorn enchantment, I believe it was called, or the yeah Bilethorn, before the enchantment rework, the Bilethorn was it. You know, this is way. This isn't a long time ago when it was like possibly Vorpal or whatever, but this is when the Bilethorn was it, and everybody was using it. I said, yeah, Bilethorns are great for groups who like slow melts. And what we found was when everybody used another weapon enchant that provided a debuff, like the Dread or the Frozen, and we used different levels of them that stacked, and they only gave like 2% debuff or whatever. But when you got 10 players using those 2% debuffs, it made a monstrous, noticeable increase to the group's damage output. It, it was so hard to find, you know, 4 players, one with a level 12, a level 11, and a level 10 Frozen, you know, or Dread. Oh man, it was horrible. But I was very fortunate. I shared a lot when we did those speed runs because I happened to have them all, so I was just sharing them to everybody. And you know, we got a lot of criticism for that. They're like, Bilethorn's the best. I'm like, yes, it is very good in an average group that has no intention of running the content fast. And the same goes with these mounts. These mounts, what I'm seeing, if my math is correct, this mount right here, if a DPS takes off tunnel vision and uses this, that particular DPS who uses this will lose damage. But the group's gain, the 10-man group's overall damage gain, will exceed the damage lost by that one DPS. Let me give you an example. This one's a little bit harder to show you. Let me go to the Pegasus. This one's really easy to show, to explain. Where's the Pegasus? No, that's going. There it goes. Okay. This is one shot, one kill. So if I mess up, you can comment and criticize me below. So how my math is showing is that most DPS are doing around 12,000 magnitude during an artifact call. 12,000 magnitude. Some classes might do a little bit more, some might do a little bit less, but I'm figuring 12,000 magnitude. This is what I'm basing off of. 12,000 magnitude in that 10 seconds. So this tunnel vision, this 3,000 magnitude that we get from Big B's hand, tunnel vision, is 1/4 of that DPS's damage. 1/4. Because if they're doing 12,000 magnitude and they lose 3,000 of it, they just lost 1/4 of their damage. 25%. So let's put them on most of these group buff mounts actually have a buff. Not like the T-Rex only has a debuff, but it doesn't buff the user. But like this Grand Inspiration, when a DPS uses this, they're not losing 3,000 magnitude. They're losing 2,000 magnitude because this has 1,000 magnitude damage, right? So they're losing 2,000 magnitude out of 12,000. So instead of losing, let me get the old calculator out, 2,000 divided by 12,000. So instead of losing 25% of their damage, they're losing 16.5% of their damage. But let's just round it up. Let's err on the side of skeptics. So the DPS is going to lose 20% of their damage if they use the Pegasus as opposed to tunnel vision. 20% is a lot. But remember, there's 6 DPS in the group. There's 6 DPS in the group. So 20% divided by 20.2 divided by 1 divided by 6 parentheses. Gosh dang it. What's 1/6 of 20? God dang it. Okay, hold on. I thought I had this all figured out, but I can't redo this video. The kids are getting crazy. So the DPS is losing 20% of their overall damage. But they're just 1/6 of the damage, right? Because they're 6 DPS. So they're, 16.5 times 0.2. So by the DPS losing that 20% damage, the group's only losing 3% of their overall damage from the 6 DPS. That's not including all the damage from the 10 companions, the 2 healers, and 2 tanks, because all of them are doing damage. But we're just factoring in the 6 DPS. So when the DPS who goes from tunnel vision to Pegasus, they're going to lose 20% of their damage, and the group's going to lose just, let's say 3.5%, but it's really going to be closer to 3%. So the group's losing 3.5% of their damage when he uses a tunnel, or she uses a tunnel vision. Now the question is, will this 15% buff for the group exceed that 3.3% damage loss? And the answer is, for this personal buff, resounding yes. Now when we start getting into the debuffs, this is where it gets really tricky. Because if you start adding all the debuffs we have, it's very, very reasonable to suspect the group having at least 200% debuffs. You got the Scepter, you got the Mythallar, you got the Blades, you got the Demo, you got 6 more artifacts doing at least 10%. You got the Rex, Swarm, Eclipse. Then you got the Merilith, APOC, Vistani sets. Then you can take in class debuffs like the Hunter Ranger's Commanding Shot or whatever. So 200% debuff, right? If a group is at 200% debuff, remember this is going to be very big diminishing returns, and you add 15% debuff, and you're already at 200% debuff, every single person on that team is going to get a 5% damage increase. That's a way less than the 15% we start with, but that 5% overall group damage far exceeds the 3.5% lost by that one player not using the tunnel vision. And remember, that tunnel vision being used is only 3.3% of the group's damage, only assuming the 6 DPS are doing damage. That's assuming none of the companions, the 2 tanks, and the 2 healers are not attacking one single time. So if you take in all the companions and all the healers' damage, when that the DPS loses their tunnel vision, you're not losing 3.5% of the group's damage. You're probably losing close to 2% of the group's damage. So what's better, the group losing 2% damage or the group gaining 5% more damage for everything? Well, that's why these group buffs and how I'm looking at it, if you keep taking these figures further and further, it's always going to favor out in favor of the team where 10 debuff mounts will favor the 10 or the 6 magnitude mounts. And what's great about this red dragon is it's better than a debuff. It lowers crit avoidance, which is not quite as good as a normal debuff, but it's better because we don't have a lot of crit avoidance debuffs in the game. So you're going to get more out of that 15% crit avoidance debuff than you're going to get out of 15% damage debuff when the group's already at 200%. And the person who did their calculator for that asked me not to share because they're trying to stay low key. Thank you. It helped confirm what I thought I knew. Uh, so we're at this position. We currently have 6 mounts, and the 7th one is very, very close. It's a hit. It's a toss up. If the 7th one, that would be the Bulgara. The Bulgara is only doing a 10% debuff instead of 15. But even at the 10%, if you're at 200 mitigation, 200%, that 10% is still a 3.3 damage gain, which I believe will improve the group more than the one tunnel vision being lost. It's just super painful to be at to build around and put these 7 debuff mounts. But what I'm hoping, kind of like I hoped for very long ago, it's still in PE. I was like, I can't wait till we get to the point where we have 10 support companions and we never have to worry about companion damage again. And we've been there actually. Now it's just even easier. Now that we got the blue fire eye giving us a 3% crit, and we got the Harper Bard Atrian, each giving us 4% offensive ratings. This is amazing because when you build around those ratings, you can use more outgoing damage. So now we're almost at the point where we're not going to have any tunnel visions in the entire group. We're at the point where you can use a striking damage companion that doesn't buff the group, but it's not as effective for the group in an organized group as a support buffing companion. And then hopefully we get even more of these. You know, we have a number of group buffs that we can use in our mount and equip bonuses. The big ones everybody knows about is, you know, we got Runic Aura. This one's been out the longest, and the players who started using this the first were the awesome. I think it was Candy who first told me about it. Yeah, she figured out something great. Thanks, Candy. Uh, so we have Runic Aura, we have Mystic Aura, we have Pack Tactics. What's great about the Pack Tactics is it does stack. The problem is it's just a pain in the ass to build around multiple stacks of those, and they get less effective. But hopefully we get more of these. You know. Also, I want to talk about 8% action point gain is a shitload of action point gain. I don't have time to do it, but if you go to the training room dummy and you just attack with one at will and see how long it takes to fill your AP bar, and then add 8% AP gain and see how much faster you will fill your AP bar. It's so noticeable. And we got buffing companions right now that will buff AP gain. And in my eyes, buffing AP is a direct buff to the DPS classes. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm a ranger and we have a couple dailies that don't take a full bar to use. But there's a lot of classes right now that are really close to being able to do a daily in between the artifact calls. And that 8% we can get from the two companions may put them there. So these are companions I don't think are being looked at too much. But we got one of them is her. She's in the battle pass. So if you don't have her, you might want to get her if you plan on doing not so much in 5-man content, but for 10-man content. If you have her, and then I think the other one is it Regis' cooldown. Is it Dritz? No, Dritz is it Wolfgar? I think Wolfgar gives a let's see what he does. AP. Yeah, 3% AP to the group. So if you got 8% for the AP to the group, that's, we're getting 5% from a mythic collar. So that's almost two mythic collars worth of AP gain just from these companions. There is so many buffing companions out there that we can use right now. And I know somebody's going to say below, we have too many ratings as it is. We don't need any more ratings. Yeah, I got it. I've been working on this mod 29 build, and we have a lot of ratings because we don't have a lot of outgoing damage gear. But if you have too many ratings, there's things you can do with those ratings. You don't have to be a Geth or a Wood Elf. You could be, what is it, the Tiefling that increases your damage whenever the enemy you're facing is below 50%. So you can give up 5% ratings right there. You have to buy a race reroll. Blah. But there's always going to be ways. This is out on a limb. This is crazy. This is heresy. I've actually made two builds where I'm not using the Celestial Lightning enchant because I have nothing else to take off. I know this is great, but once you start getting all these stats and ratings you need, for example, I think some of you watching this video have probably seen we had a couple really nice burns in the past where we one phase Demogorgon. Most groups are taking 2 to 3 artifact calls to get out of phase one, and we did it in 6 seconds. You know, if I was doing, or we did Zerial, really really fast. If we're going for a one phase burn, this is not something I would recommend, but this is something you have to take into consideration. So we're gonna go to collections, we'll go to mounts, and like this red dragon right here, right? It's gonna increase my crit and accuracy. Well, shit, that's what my lightning's getting. So if I'm using this, I don't have to use a lightning. Well, but it's gonna be ass after the artifact call. But if we're just going in there planning on killing it really super fast, during the artifact call, the I believe that the testing has shown that the cursed burns giving like a 4%, 4.5% flat damage increase. That's a shit ton of damage. That's equivalent to getting 4,000 more item level. So if I'm going into a one phase artifact call, I'm on the red dragon, I'm not using lightning enchant because I won't need it because we're trying to kill that sucker fast. So hopefully there's been a lot of staleness in the game right now where not a lot of players have been as interested in that, but hopefully we can get players start coming back and we get interested and we can start doing those crazy runs again where we maximize all the team buffs. But so we got companion buffs, we got mount buffs, we got mount equip bonus buffs, and hopefully they bring back weapon debuffs again. Oh, those were the best, because all we got right now are weapon enchantments that damage the group. And tanks or healers are like, we need a better tank or we need a better healer weapon enchant. I'm like, ding, give them a debuff. And they're like, no. I got it. If you need it to survive, you need it to survive. But there's a lot of tanks and healers out there that have a surplus of heals and are damn near invincible, where they could definitely use a debuff to help the groups burn. And I would just like to have that option back, so if we wanted to, we could. I mean, these builds that we've been forced to make have been so stale as they dumb down this game. But it's nice to see they're slowly improving the diversity of builds and team making we can do. This Red Dragon's really good. I think it was overlooked by so many people. If we get 3, 4 more of these bad boys, it's set. Goodbye tunnel vision. Everybody's everybody love everybody. Everybody improve everybody's damage. And the meta is an ever moving, constantly shifting. What class is the flavor of the month? The thing is they're usually not opinions. Like it becomes very apparent which classes are doing, more optimal in certain scenarios. And usually what I found is as long as the player is really good and can do their rotation, we can basically, use any class in any scenario. But there are some classes that do shine, but that's a whole different topic. But because that's outside most of our control. But this Red Dragon mount, this is why I got on so many characters, because I don't think a lot of people realize how powerful this mount right here is. This is stronger than any tunnel vision in the game. If you have a 10-person coordinated group, yeah, you'll lose damage, but the group will gain more than you lose. Unless my math is wrong. It could be very well wrong. Well, that's it for theory crafting on the meta changes. If you got any other observations or you disagree with anything, please comment below. I always appreciate it when people are critical because I could very, very well be wrong about all this nonsense. I've been wrong in the past. I don't know if I was wrong about Forte builds. I don't know if I was wrong about striker builds. I don't know if I was wrong about a lot of stuff. I just think this is the beginning of a meta shift right now because it's been the meta forever to use tunnel visions, and I think this is a game changer. And if we get more of these to follow, it will change how we build teams. Stay class, Neverwinter. See you soon.